Welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Selectmen's meeting. It is already the 13th of December, hard to believe. Before we get going, Kern, would you read the quote of the evening, please?
I'd be glad to. Do not speak unless you can improve the silence. Edmund Muskie.
Thank you very much. And just as a reminder, there's some new faces in here, and so if you wish to have a conversation while we're having a conversation, great, just do it outside and close the door. And if you wish to have a conversation with the board, just raise your hand and we will recognize you and then invite you up to the podium to engage, but we won't have a conversation from the audience to the board. Cool? Great. So that being said, let's move along to the Citizens Forum for any non-agenda items.
Can you stand up here? Or
Yep, please, and introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks very much for having a citizens forum. It's really a wonderful part about being in a small town. I don't know that something like this happens just anywhere, so I'm grateful for that. My name's John Pinsence, and tonight I'm representing not just myself, but a number of people in the audience who have formed a group called Lincolnville Voices. And we're deeply concerned about some construction that's going on the shore, maybe a half a mile or so, 3/4 of a mile from the beach going towards Camden. It's a major pier construction, 300 feet long, with a 55-foot ramp and a 20 by 30-foot float going off the end of it, so which amounts to almost 400 feet. 123 feet of that is over, or is beyond the low tide line, which puts it in the public, in the state of Maine as a public trust, held in trust for the public. The reason they have to go out that far is because the morphology of the shoreland there is such that they have to get the pier and float and ramp out that far in order to get their boat tied up along the float, and the boat has apparently 4 feet of draft. It's a major pier operation because of the exposure there, granite cribbing, big granite slabs, quite high. I think there are 5 of them, I can't quite remember, but anyway, the plans are available from DEP, or I could send them to anybody who wants to look at them. It's a major pier. I thought it might be useful, I don't want to take up too much of your time, I know you've got plenty of stuff to do here, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the purposes of the ordinance, but it's not something you read every day, I'm sure. So I just would like to read the purposes of the land use ordinance here. It's just a paragraph. And all of these points are what we're concerned with. I don't think there's a single point here that doesn't have bearing on our concerns for this pier. There are other concerns as well on the land itself, where we believe that permitting has not been, or I should say the zoning ordinances have not been adhered to, and permits are not up to date, things like that. So that's part of the issue, only in the sense that it shows a certain lack of concern about ordinances, laws, regulations, and neighbors, and I'd go so far as to say the community. So the purpose of the ordinance, this is the land use ordinance, are to further the maintenance of safe and healthy conditions, to prevent and control water pollution, to protect fish spawning grounds, aquatic life, bird and other wildlife habitat, to protect buildings and lands from flooding and accelerated erosion, to protect archaeological and historic resources, to protect commercial fishing and maritime industries, to protect freshwater and coastal wetlands, to control building sites, placement of structures and land uses, to conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, to conserve natural beauty and open space, and to anticipate and respond to the impacts of development in the town of Lincolnville, and to maintain the present rural residential character of the community. It goes on to state that interpretation of what may not be clear in this ordinance shall be according to the intent of the ordinance and the comprehensive plan. As I said, the pier itself is a huge and massive, out of scale kind of construction. It sticks out quite a ways into the bay, almost 400 feet, in a place where it can be seen from miles around. The application says that there are similar piers in the area, and if you look at if you walk along the shore, if you're familiar with the shore from Lincolnville, from the ferry terminal south to Camden, I don't know that there's even one pier that is anything like it. There's a pier in the harbor, as you know, not the ferry terminal, but another pier, again, that's sort of tucked into the harbor a little ways, and it has no impact, no visual impact the way this particular pier and dock and ramp would. So it's not just the visual and scenic aspects of it, but also the navigability of the waters there, something that goes out that far from the shore, is going to impact people who canoe, kayak, boat, even sail along the shore there. Because also it goes out quite so far, it would seem like they would have to have lights on it. And if we're trying to maintain, among other things, the rural character of the area, lights on a pier going out, jutting out into the bay is not, at least according to what the ordinance claims, maintaining the rural character of the town. So that's pretty much, unless there's something else somebody that I've missed here that somebody else would like to chime in a little bit. Oh, there is a concern, there was a concern by some folks that, you know, there's no way that we can prevent it by law, but there is a case called Uliano versus Board of Environmental Protection, dating back to 2009. The Uliano Supreme Judicial Court of Maine upheld the Board of Environmental Protection's denial of an application to construct a pier 95 feet by 6 feet with a 50-foot seasonal aluminum ramp and a 16-foot by 20-foot wooden float. The Supreme Judicial Court of Maine held as follows. I mean, I can refer, or if you want to refer to that on your own, please do. I don't necessarily have to read all this, but by comparison, as I said, this pier is 300 feet long with a 55-foot ramp and a 20 by 30-foot float, going out 123 feet beyond mean low tide, which, as I said, is held by the state of Maine in public trust. So these are just some of the reasons. There'll be more. I believe we're on the agenda for the next August 27th meeting, and we'll have more information then. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up about, you know, what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and why. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, John. Questions for John?
I just have one quick question. Is this pier for commercial use or recreational use by a family or something?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. No, it's just one family, personal use.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time to come in.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for any non-agenda items? Okay, thank you all. Moving along, let's go to the administrator's report.
I don't have anything to report beyond the agenda.
If you forget something, just jump back in.
Nope.
Alrighty, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
Comprehensive Plan Review Committee is scheduled to meet Wednesday, December 15th, 7 p.m. at the town office. The town office will be closed on Friday, December 24th, in observance of the Christmas Eve holiday or Christmas holiday. And the Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, December 27th, 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. And are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? Seeing nothing, let's move along to the meeting minutes from the 22nd of November.
I move that the board approve the November 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Sure. Yep. Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
And agenda item number 6, we have the firefighter blanket accident insurance coverage, and we have Thomas Green of Green Insurance here to speak with the board. Would you care to come up to the podium and introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me up.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure I adhere to your timeline. So do you have a specific amount of time? The vaccinated with phonograph needle can talk all night.
We do have a long agenda, but
I'll make it brief. How's that?
we definitely want to get all the information on the table.
Those, for some depends. So we're gonna be discussing that, so it's a copy for each one of you, as well as one of those. So I believe Mr. Kenny had sent you information that I provided to him, reference to his questions. So just to give you a little background on myself, I've been a firefighter, still on call, volunteer firefighter EMT for 43 years. My department right now has a 3-alarm fire going, so I'd rather be here. I've been in the insurance business for over 30 years, and majority of that time I've worked with fire departments, just like your town. Across the United States, I work in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts with police, fire, and EMS. The program that I provide is an accident and health policy. So what that does, it covers your firefighters, your EMS personnel while they're on a fire department activity. So that will be running a call, fire call, EMS call, training, fundraising event, doing things, maintenance around the station, representing the department if you're going to parades or other types of functions. So this program came about in the 1920s to protect the volunteers in case they did get hurt, because first off, they're not getting paid. You do have workers' compensation by law, which is mandated. We coordinate with workers' compensation, but there are gaps when it comes to work comp, and I do provide workers' compensation insurance. So a firefighter would generally lose about 35 to 40% of their income if they are on a claim with workers' compensation. What we do is we pick up the difference of their income that they're losing from their regular occupation or occupations. As many firefighters have multiple jobs. They might work at the hardware store and then have a part-time job. So if they were injured and they couldn't work at either of those, we combine all that income. We do provide 5 areas of coverage. I'm not going to go through each one. You can read those, but just to kind of give you an area, we do have a death benefit. We have impairment benefits. We have income disability benefits. We have medical and family assistance. I cover departments all over Maine, like Chelsea, not far from here, Castine, just a little north of here, and all the way down the coast through Cumberland County and York County. Just a couple of years ago, I paid the claim for Joel Barnes, who died in a house fire in Berwick. I've insured Berwick for about 25 years. So it's unfortunate when we do pay those claims, and I have to deliver a check. But I'm fortunate that we're able to take care of the family. My own lieutenant died 9 years ago after a call with a heart attack. I knew his girls since they were little. So it doesn't bring the parent back, but it does make it easier for them to take care of bills and things that need to be done. As I said earlier, our program provides coverage for any activity that the fire department says. So if the chief says, yes, that's a fire department activity, we provide coverage. There's other programs out there that are very similar to ours, but have a lot of gaps in the programs where they may not cover after age 65, they may not cover for a pre-existing condition. We have no pre-existing condition clauses in our policy. We do cover for heart attacks, which my lieutenant died within 5 hours of being on a 24-hour shift. He was declared a heart attack, the same exact thing his father died of at the same age. So we did provide that benefit. Impairment benefits, if a firefighter loses a finger, arm, leg, toe, we use the ADA physician guide to degree of impairment based upon the amount of death injury benefit that we pay out. The biggest area where we pay out is our disability. And we can custom make a program for you. We have boilerplate in way our coverage works because it works all across the country. But we can go from a $10,000 death benefit up to $500,000. We can go from a $100 a week disability up to $1,000. For volunteers, ours is a lifetime benefit. For career, it's a 5-year benefit. But what I did for you, just based upon information with Mr. Kenny and discussing the department, how it works, you have 28 firefighters who believe in your department. We determined a $300 a week disability. So if a firefighter is making, let's say, $1,000 a week, I'm married to a special needs teacher. She says I have to really use easy numbers. So $1,000 a week, workers' compensation would pay them approximately $650 a week to $700 a week. So to be at that $300 a week gap, that's where we would come in and pay that difference to get them up to their pre-disability wage. We do cover for first week disability, partial disability if they're going to the doctor and going back and forth to hospitals. We do have medical expenses that cover up to $10,000. We can increase that if you wanted to. And we also have additional benefits to take care of family expenses if family has to They're sent to Boston to the burn center, and family has to be transported. They need hotels and meals. We take care of expenses for the family. The biggest area of coverage, like I said before, was our disability, but we do have death benefit, which comes from an injury or an illness. If one of your fire personnel become exposed to an airborne or bloodborne type pathogen, and they're exposed and they die as a result of that, or they fall in the water and get sick as a result of their exposure to cold temperatures, which we kind of have around here a little bit, and they die as a result of that exposure, it is an illness benefit. We pay an illness, not only that, and not only just injury. There's a lot to go through. I just kind of wanted to give you a primer on what our benefits work. Like I said, we've worked with departments all over Maine to provide these benefits, and I can give you a list of departments if you want to call and ask them and get their references on how we pay our claims and the services that we do. It is through Provident Accident Benefits, which is managed through Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but it's Provident Life and Health, and we also work with Access as the paper company. I also did work up a benefit for a 24-hour accidental death and dismemberment. So our plan only covers when it's a fire department activity. When the tones go out and they get in their vehicle, if they fall down the stairs and injure themselves at their own home, we have them covered as soon as the tones go out. The whole time they're at the event, they get back to the station, they put the apparatus back in service, and they go home or they go back to work. Wherever they stop and make their first stop, stop for a cup of coffee, then they become a citizen again. But we have them covered that whole time. So they may not make it to a paved road. I've had people get tangled up in bed sheets and fall down the stairs. I've tripped over my dog in the middle of the night. She knows to get out of the way now. But didn't even get to the firehouse and have injured. I've known many firefighters to fall out of the fire truck and be injured. Didn't even get to the fire. So it covers on events as well. But we do have a 24-hour accidental death and dismemberment, which would cover your fire personnel, EMS personnel, 24 hours a day if it was an accidental death or accidental dismemberment. It could happen anywhere in the country. We'll cover them 24 hours a day. That's an extra benefit, and I worked up that premium along with that. It also has a double benefit. If it is a fire department related event, the benefit would double. So we did work up plan one would be a $10,000 death benefit, and then double of that would be $20,000. On the plan that I worked up for you for the accident health policy, it's a $50,000 death benefit, $300 a week disability, and $10,000 for medical, and all the other ancillary benefits. I kind of gave you the really quick version of that, but I just want to open up to questions that you may have.
Yeah, questions for Mr. Green?
It's a lot to go through.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come in and speak with us in person. It's invaluable.
I have a question.
Yeah, Josh.
Hi. How many volunteer departments in Maine work through your company?
There's about 445 fire departments in the state of Maine. I cover about 50 departments in the state of Maine. In New Hampshire, there's 238 fire departments. I cover about 4,000 firefighters in the state of New Hampshire. So we cover a lot more in New Hampshire than just geography. I'm working my way through Maine. It's a big state. Yeah. But I do cover the Vermont State Firefighters Association, the New Hampshire State Firemen's Association, and sure, the Maine Fire Chiefs Association. So I work with a lot of individual departments. And in Cumberland County, we have about 12 departments in Cumberland County that have a combined policy. Chelsea, I think I've been working with them for probably over 15 years. Castine, probably 8 years with Castine Fire. Berwick, 25 years. York Fire Department. So, there's departments all over the state that I work with.
Okay. And what's the rough breakdown, would you say, of departments that do the 24-hour accidental death and dismemberment versus the more comprehensive policy?
I'd say probably about 25% of my departments have a 24-hour. We also provide group life programs as well. I've been really working a lot with departments for that because things happen in life, whether it be heart attack or cancer, non-fire related. Cancer is progressing extremely fast in the fire service. In New Hampshire, we just had our first line of duty cancer death. So we're working a lot with departments with a group life plan. And then I didn't go through the premium. I'm not sure if that's something you want to discuss now. But with our premiums, the way they're structured, we can do an annual premium. We can do a 3-year policy, which levels the premium for 3 years, saves you 6.7%. So you have the same premium for 7 years, or for 3 years. And then there's a 3-year prepaid premium. So those are on the second sheet. I think it's around $1,700 for the annual premium.
So you just mentioned something that's actually concerns me, but can you touch on that cancer comment in the fire service?
Okay.
Can you?
I'll do the best
can you explain
of my
that?
best of my ability. How's that?
I guess what my biggest question is that industry accelerated, meaning fire service accelerated, meaning what they're exposed to?
Absolutely, 100%. When
It
I
is.
started way back in the old days, out of the horse and buggy days, duck coats, pull-up boots, not kidding, open cab fire truck, my first fire truck ride. Now I sound like one of the old guys. So it was a lot different then. You didn't have all this plastics and all the phosgene in the fires. Now when my firefighters are going to the building today, they're exposed to so many toxins. If you've ever seen one of these big screen TVs melt into like a puddle of glass, the amount of carcinogens that go off. We're cleaning our gear all the time now, where we used to have the dirtiest gear we could in the station. But cancer is progressed quickly. And then the turnout gear that we're wearing with the PFSAs that's in, which we're fighting as a fire service industry to get rid of that through our gear. But we're fighting that we're getting that through our sweat, and it's coming into our skin. So we as companies are working with providing cancer programs. We don't have it in Maine yet, but there's a lot of cancer legislation going on throughout the country. I work with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation to try and push that legislation through. We just got a cancer presumptive clause in New Hampshire. It's in Maine as well. So it's growing exponentially. So it's only because of the stuff that we're exposed to. Things that weren't there 40, 50 years ago.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you could send on that list of main towns that you.
Sure, I can do it. I can
Be
provide
great.
Mr. Kane.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jordan?
And this is, I mean, I guess a morbid question, but this is all part of it.
I deal with morbid all the
I
time,
know,
unfortunately.
that's why you're here. So in your experience, what is the average funeral costs these days running?
$10,000. I know that because I buried my mom 9 years ago.
Yeah.
I had to pay for a funeral, and it was a bare bones basic funeral. I work with the funeral team in New Hampshire. We actually helped manage Joel Barnes' funeral in Berwick. I've worked with a lot of departments in Maine. We have a funeral team that goes out and assists fire departments to run a funeral in the fire station or wherever they need to. Because at their time, their mourning, we have a full team that goes in. We can just set up a full service. We've done that since 2007. But yeah, between $10,000 and $20,000 for a funeral. Like I said, my mom's was a basic casket, a basic grave, a basic $400 headstone. We did a lot of the work ourselves between my sister and I. And it was about $10,000, but that was 9 years ago, so we had inflation for that. So
That's what I thought. All right, thank you.
yeah, and funerals are different. Everybody does funerals differently these days. I buried my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my in-laws, my mother. So you can either do a cremation or regular casket.
And that was just in the context of when you look at the death benefits, there is a substantial cost to even just taking care of somebody after they died, so it's an important thing to take into
And one thing to think about, and I never asked for a show of hands, but if you asked everybody if they were honest, how many people actually had life insurance? A lot of people don't, and I've gone to a lot of fire departments where the family didn't have life insurance to bury the individual, and the fire department had to pony up and do a fundraiser to bury that individual. It's a sad time, but it's the last thing you want to worry about is finance at a time of grief. And we're able to, fortunately, when I deliver a check, I don't know who cries more, me, the spouse, or the chief. It's because it's so much, it's important. It's things you never want to have happen, but if someone can be taken care of with, they're feeling physical pain, we can help them with the financial pain, that's the objective. And the fire department can go back and help that individual because they're volunteering their time. They may be paid on call, but the money I make per call does not add up. So.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Green at this point? David, anything to add?
Nope.
At the moment?
One thing with our policy, we did it on there's policies out there that are per person rated, and if they're not on the list, they don't have coverage. If you take this policy into place, you put it in play, I have binding authority, you can do it tonight if you wanted to. As soon as the fire department says we're covering, you have these 28 members, if they bring somebody on next month as a new firefighter, we don't keep a list, they're automatically covered. But when they leave the department, they go off. So we don't ask for a list because the firehouse has a revolving door. So if, 6 months down the road, they add 4 new firefighters, there's no change in premium, and we automatically cover those firefighters at the instant as they become a member of that organization. We cover junior firefighters, auxiliary personnel, and retired firefighters, because I'm always dragging my retired guys out to help out with the firehouse.
It's important, thanks for adding that, that's good to know.
Anything else? Thank you very much again.
You have my contact information. Please reach out, email, phone, text, telephone still works. Any information any questions that you have, please let me know. And you can share the feds that way.
Thank you
Thank
once
for your
again.
time, yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, Tom.
And moving along, we have Mike here to give us our electrical inspector report and permit update. If you don't mind coming to the podium, sir?
It's real simple. We just tried to streamline it. We tried to increase the rate a little bit to be not competitive, but, come up to normal wage anyway. What the biggest thing, the old permits was confusing. We listed receptacles, switches, lights. When you're doing a job, a lot of times you don't know. So we basically enveloped it into one price. One price for a house, one price for an addition, one price for a barn. Real simple. Another thing we added was heat pumps. Heat pumps were not included, so we had to decide whether it was a fractional motor, was a heating system. So we just listed heat pumps. Very simple. And what we were charging for permits, 40 cents for receptacles, 40 cents for lights. It didn't even pay the ladies in the office their time.
Mm.
So that's basically all we did. We didn't, no more inspection fees. We just tried to simplify it. It's evolving. It's ever changing. But and I think we are still way under our neighboring towns. So we're trying to be fair too. That's it.
Short and sweet, yeah.
Yeah,
Norton.
just very quick, so do you think that you've increased it enough to cover things, even though we are way underneath? other
See, I
towns?
don't know about the office ladies, but, as far as inspections and stuff, no, we're good with that. It's still a matter of safety.
Yeah.
It's not so much the money, it's just we need to make sure it's done right,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so, that's it.
Excellent. Any other questions for Mike? Yeah, Kern.
How has the last year gone for you and how it relates to your inspection for the town?
Well, we haven't done the new permits yet, we're still on the old ones.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I just wonder how the last year has been.
extremely busy.
Yeah.
I know that the ladies have done way more permits probably, and CMP now requires an inspection on all new services and all upgrades, so, yeah, it keeps you busy. And there's a lot of work, a lot of stuff going on.
With regards to that, Mike, I'll just come around and ask you, is it still worth your time?
It's worth my time. If you, at some point there'll be a new inspector, and I'm not intending on getting done, but, you probably will face an additional pay. But for me, no, it's worth my time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
You are very welcome.
And does anyone care to make a motion, please?
I move that the proposed revised application for electrical permit be approved with an effective date of January 1st, 2022.
Second.
Moved and well seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Thanks again for coming out.
Thank you very much.
And we have the Harbor Committee Chair here to give us a report and some fee recommendations and whatever else.
All right.
Welcome, Nick. Good to see you.
Hello all.
Oh,
Hey, neighbor.
Hey, what's up?
Long time.
Yeah. Has been. Do you guys happen to have any paperwork in front of you, such as the pier and float usage plan?
We,
That they don't.
no, we
we've
don't
got the
have
pricing
the
structure, but
Well, it's gonna be hard. I can do show and tell. How's your eyesight?
Do you wanna make copies?
Why don't you talk about fees and I'll go.
All right, we're gonna skip the fees. You might not want that one. It's got my cliff notes on it. All right, on to fees. The Harbor Committee talked it over, and we didn't foresee any large expenditures. We're not building floats, we're not building ramps and stuff like that in this coming year. And we've gone up pretty drastically over the past 5 years with harbor fees, so we were looking to not raise fees this year, especially with all the added expense of life this year. Everything costs more this year, so. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So you're looking for just flatline for this upcoming year?
Flatline for this year.
Yep.
Because we had added a lot of fees and changed things around in past years, so there has been quite a boost to the harbor savings fund and everything like that. And while he's making copies of that, we had a question. Did the selectmen approach the sewer district about the purchase of, you did?
Yeah, we sort of preemptively had an informal conversation with them about sort of getting first in line when they're ready to have that conversation, and by all indications, they're not there yet,
Okay.
but we,
Do we know what's going on with the thing? Because it looks in pretty disrepair, like,
no idea. Yeah.
What are you guys referring to?
Oh, the former sewer district site
Okay.
and what, yeah, at some point, I imagine we, meaning the board, probably will have an agenda item where we'll wanna have an update with them. We've got some other ongoing business, so.
that's, I don't know if we can kind of stress the importance of acquiring that, because I know it's been point of the board to maybe look into doing something with the launching ramp and parking and stuff like that, and almost nothing can be done if we don't acquire that piece of property.
Yep.
So, and I mean, just today we couldn't even get parking spots down there.
Really?
So, and it's December. I don't know if it's overflow from the ferry or whatnot, because there's a lot of cars that we've never seen, but the parking lots are still jammed full, like it's people going to the beach and stuff, so.
Huh.
So we need to either do more about enforcement with the parking, or we need to acquire more parking.
good to know, thanks, Matt.
Well, did the harbor committee, and thank you for submitting minutes, they definitely were Cliff's Notes version, so.
I
So
agreed with that.
I'm just curious, did the harbor committee talk at all about, the boat, I mean, so you talked about parking, but, what's the harbor committee's,
David brought up the possibility of a grant, maybe coming to fruition in the future, or maybe Shane brought it up, I don't know which, but, we are gonna be meeting again in January and starting some workshops
Yep.
over revisions of the ordinance, kinda, we're gonna go through some parts of the ordinance and come up with some possible changes to submit to you guys
okay,
in January and February, so that we can kind of streamline parts of the ordinance that maybe have some gray areas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it would be something to address there. Maybe get one or two individuals that have the time to dedicate towards looking for a grant for the boat ramp. And I guess something to think about would be maybe some dialogue between the select board and the harbor committee with everybody's end goal of what they're looking to get out of a new boat ramp. Like, are you looking to get a textured surface so the tires don't slip? Or are you looking to get a 30-degree ramp with parking on both sides and a pier out? And we need something to look at so that the people writing the grants can know what to ask for. All right?
Makes a lot of sense.
Does it make sense to have a workshop together so that we could, you know,
Yeah.
together put our minds, it doesn't have to be a long one, but you guys know so much more.
That would be
I do.
great.
It would be just-
And it brought up something from the ordinance as well that we haven't been approached yet, but the pier that they're talking about, our harbor ordinance requires the planning board to reach out to us once that's submitted to them within 30 days.
Yeah.
So maybe we could tie
TBD, yeah.
all that together into a workshop with you guys, talk about the pier.
For
Talk
sure,
about
especially coming into the new year, it would be good to like hammer that stuff out.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and so maybe you guys give us a heads up when you feel like you kind of have a collective direction, and then we can get it on an agenda
yeah.
and set up a workshop.
So maybe we'll go through and do the ordinance work and stuff like that, streamline that, and then reach out to you about boat ramp and possible new pier and ordinance work.
Yeah, that
Sound
sounds
Yeah.
great.
Sure.
Anything else on fees or that kind of thing? All right, Oh,
I
sorry,
just have
Howard.
one thing, I know we're good with floats right now, but is there a targeted year that one needs to be redone, or are we, and the reason I asked that is I was gonna follow that with, we've got a ramp over here, and don't we have another float somewhere that could, with a little bit of work, could be used? Or do we not? Anymore, did we get rid of those?
So we had some for sale this spring,
They're narrow, they're super
and they were narrow, they don't,
Yeah.
Okay,
But
and
we
we-
do have that gap.
we have some small ones, and I believe, I don't know this for sure, unless you guys got them somewhere. I think they were at Mike's house, I don't,
I think we got the one back that we
the small
needed to
one.
get back there.
Yeah,
Okay,
Well, perhaps
but we've
that,
got that ramp, and I know the ramp just needs a little bit of work, and that could be a functional,
spare.
oh my God, we've lost something.
Yeah.
We can slip that right in quickly, so, okay. I just wanna make sure stuff like that is still on our radar.
Or we could sell it. Type deal, because we do have 2 other ramps in a
Yeah,
bad situation,
Okay.
cause,
alright,
I mean, a lot of times the ramps have been fixed in a timely fashion and replaced, and that was years ago that we even lost one.
Mhm.
So maybe it's an asset that we actually don't need.
the thing that I really would like to see happen with the floats is I don't wanna get back to where we were, where we needed 3 in a 2-year
So-
span, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we're keeping track of,
We had a
What's
pretty
going on?
long discussion on this, and the big difference with all the floats we have installed now is there's no wood or fasteners in the water. Everything's all the plastic pontoons. And so the oldest float we have, they pulled it out and checked it over, and it just needed the skids that the plastic pontoons have on the bottom, and that was it.
perfect.
And it seems to be doing good, and there was, David can correct me, but I don't believe Kurt gave us a feasible timeline on replacement of that. He's like, it's good, like the fasteners are good and everything, so.
Yeah,
I don't foresee us building one anytime soon.
okay,
And,
perfect, that's good, that's good news
Yeah,
yeah.
compared to years gone by.
Yeah.
yeah.
Really good.
And the new float got installed, the final new float got installed at the dinghy location, and everything seems to be going great.
Okay.
Super. So talk to us about the pier and float usage plan.
All right, pier and float usage plan. We are gonna get together and redraw it and add a few things to it that you're lacking. We're gonna draw the ladder locations, and we also are looking to add some trash receptacles to the pier because the past few years there's been a large problem with garbage on the pier because there is no trash receptacle. So we talked over places that wouldn't impede anything and be in great locations to service everybody using the pier. And the first location would be, you see the walkway coming down from the ferry terminal road. There's a flat spot at the bottom of it where it meets the vehicle ramp, where we could just extend out and connect into the pier and the bottom of the ramp there and make a flat spot for a trash can. And is all we're looking for is like a trash can, so with a reasonably small hole so you don't bring your household garbage and dispose of it there, like your trash bags and stuff like
You're
that.
talking 55-gallon drum type of thing?
55-gallon drum.
With an insert or something in
Yeah.
it and then a cover?
And then a cover.
Yeah, okay.
And then hopefully we could tie it into whatever trash service the beach has, because somebody takes
Yeah.
the garbage out of the beach, and we
Okay.
could. And that location's great for the people in the mornings waiting for the ferry. And a lot of what we see for garbage on the pier is coffee cups and.
So it's mostly traffic from the ferry and people walking around. It's
No,
not like-
I mean, there's plenty of other stuff, but I'll say the majority of the trash you see blowing around the pier because somebody's done, sets a coffee cup on top of an Exactic and then it blows around. But there is, this spring I cleaned up the pier down there and I filled the entire body of my truck plus 4 55-gallon drums of garbage. And there was everything from diapers to a pop-up shelter. Like somebody's pop-up shelter from Warren Island got destroyed. They spent the time to drag it back to the mainland and then throw it on the pier.
They packed it out.
Okay, well,
Thanks for doing that.
it's unfortunate, but.
But, so that was the first location. The second location was directly across the vehicle ramp, in that corner where the vehicle ramp and the pier meet on what would be the north side. And it's a similar thing, you could tuck it out of the way, cut the handrail out, put a little addition, then it's not in the way of snow plowing, it's not in the way of anything. And everybody who uses the pier has to go by those two locations. So they can lug their garbage up and throw it out. You know? There was talk of putting one at the top of the ramp at D, but a lot of stuff gets stored there on the pier. So if we could do something off the pier, it might be feasible, but if a boat's in under the winch, that's already a little tight. So the two locations each side of the vehicle ramp would be best, I believe. But thank you. And get out of order here. Also, it was requested by somebody that we get a life ring and put it on the ramp going down on the D-float, like on the south side of the ramp where it meets D-float, so that if there ever was an incident that somebody went overboard on that south side and the ferry was in the pen, that you could possibly get a life ring to them before the ferry ate them.
Okay.
Yep.
That's something that's never been there, or something been there and it just came up missing or got
No,
removed? or-
we don't. No,
but
we've never had one there.
It's a safety issue, I would think that should be there.
Yeah.
Only one, Nick?
So in our minutes, it mentions putting it on the connector between E and D, but in my notes, I didn't see that. But it's definitely an option.
Well, it could, location to be determined, but
Yeah,
the concept is
That's
Have
only,
available.
smart.
it's 25 or 30 feet away from each other. I don't know if we need two that close to each other, but one location or the other. D is the primary float, and it is closest to the propellers.
Yep.
So,
And it's in service year round.
and it's in service
Unlike
year
E.
round.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've had a problem with people parking for extended periods of time on, especially that eastern float at the bottom of D ramp. And there is no signage on it that says loading and unloading. So we'd still, I know we mentioned it before, but we'd still like to get that signage reinstalled, or paint something even on the float.
Mm-hmm.
So when you step off, Camden has a painted slat
Mm-hmm.
right there, and it's very obvious. You have to step on it. You don't have to read a sign. But to get off the boat, you can see it.
Yep.
So
And
if it was stenciled and painted out on the dock itself.
yes, yeah, it kind of makes the most sense. Maybe it would deter some of the people that didn't know they were in the wrong,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there is some verbiage to, as you can see on the harbor plan there, you are allowed to park longer between 6 p.m. and 4 a.m. on those faces. So we would, if we do stencil something in there, we would have to include that somehow. And as of now, in winter hours, there's nowhere to tie for an extended period of time. So it's also seasonal. I don't know if painting it's the best option. It's something we have to weigh out.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we want to allow longer parking? Because when people aren't parked there, I would think we would wanna use it as emergency parking only. If, you know what I mean?
So the side of the north side of Seafloat
Yeah.
has no extended. That's loading and unloading only
Okay.
at all times. So that's our emergency use float, and usually that's the best weather is at sea.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But what it allows is the people who come over for dinner and stuff, like so right now, if 3 people take a decent sized boat over from the island to come for dinner or somewhere, it forces them onto D float because each side of E is taken by decent sized boats, and then the third person would have to go to D, or if the tide's up, they can go into B or A. And we also would like to move forward with getting the ladder installed at the winch. I know we've had money for it for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
and we all forget about it till it's time to take up gear, and then it
Mhm.
becomes quite a safety issue.
We do
So,
have money for that. We
Yeah.
approved that, what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, it's been in the works.
We
It
get
was
done.
requested in 2017.
Let's get it done. It's
Yeah,
a
that-
safety issue.
So-
And that's 2 ladders, right?
No, it's just one.
This one, okay.
Yeah, but you'll be tearing one down, or?
No.
Okay, but the one that there is in great shape, as I remember.
It's
No.
what?
It's not in great shape.
I think it got removed because it wasn't in great shape.
Okay, it's been removed already
Yeah.
then.
But we had also talked about putting one over where the other winch is, or was.
The ladder I'm requesting in the notes is wrong. It says southeast winch, and it's supposed to be the northeast winch.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point that you're gonna be updating this drawing, the locations, the correct locations of
Yep.
the ladders.
I say we, unless somebody's got a reason not to, I say we get that done ASAP.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless I'm misquoting here, and I don't think I am, no ladders have been removed.
I don't think so.
No, and we didn't, so the only thing that was a matter with the ladder that was in disrepair was where it landed on a piece of pressure treated at the bottom. It had become disattached from the pier, and that's been replaced and fixed. The ladder is fine. They're galvanized steel, they'll last forever.
Okay.
Let's do it. You go with-
Yeah.
Also, we met as a committee, and there's been a new option presented for the possible gallows for the ramp going down to D. Proc Marine recently and locally has started building hydraulic
Yeah.
lifts for ramps opposed to using gallows. And so there's no driving of pylons out there. It could be based off the pier. And we already have the hydraulic system there for the winch. So a matter of a valve and the flip of a switch, anybody could operate the lifting of the ramp.
This would replace a gantry system that
Yeah.
you,
Yep.
how does the price compare? Or have you not gotten that far?
We haven't gotten that far, like, to see if it's even entertainable idea to you guys, but hydraulic rams are fairly cheap. The only difference is everywhere that I've seen it installed and Kurt had seen it installed, it was installed on the bottom of the ramp. And we can't do that because it'll be in the water for part of the year. So we would have to retrofit, do the same idea, but have it above the pier. So it would possibly not be as appealing to look at, but it takes out a lot of the other issues we have of who's gonna go down with the chain fall and who's gonna walk out there and hook it up. All that safety stuff, it would literally be just unhook it off the float, go back up, and whoever has a key to the hydraulic cabinet can open it up, flip a valve, lift it up. Everything's safe, and it could be deployed just as quick, you know?
But that should be the biggest dollar project, it sounds.
We already have money.
Yeah, okay, but that's gonna be probably the biggest one we're looking at tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And we've set money aside for the gantry in the past years. That was in the budget, and we've been setting on the money. And don't quote me on this, but I think it's cheaper to have some steel work done than it is to mobilize barges and
Yep,
drive piles and everything else.
Probably, sure.
Yeah, let's definitely, workshop that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know, a number and maybe have a drawing as to what that would actually look like.
Is that something the harbor master would like to meet somebody
Yes.
and build such proposed thing? Or would he like the harbor committee to do something like that?
I'd like it to be a team effort.
Okay,
There you go.
that's fine. Should I wait to hear from you?
No, you should harass me.
And maybe at your next meeting, be able to come to some more. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
that's great.
Well, we could definitely work through the workshop
Yep.
on that stuff. I added it to the workshop list.
Yep.
Hey, that's everything I had for you guys. Do you have anything for us?
Follow-ups for Nick? Just thank you for a really comprehensive update. This is great. You guys got a lot of work done.
You did.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and we'll look forward to getting together with you guys in workshop.
All right, sounds good.
Have a great
Good night.
evening,
Thank
Nick.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Alrighty, and moving along, I guess, David, do you wanna give us a little?
Sure.
Oh, sorry,
I'll make a
nope,
motion.
we have a motion.
Yep.
Before we move along, we do have to deal with the harbor.
I move that the board establish the 2022 harbor fees the same as the 2021 harbor fees.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Have a good one, Nick.
Thank you guys.
Thanks. Good night.
Happy
Oh.
holidays.
Yeah, same to you. So I guess we don't have a representative to talk to us about,
We don't.
okay, do you wanna give a little synopsis before we have any motion or discussion?
Sure. A couple of meetings ago, you had a request from a citizens group to possibly serve as a fiscal agent for a project that might go on in the state park. You asked for legal counsel opinion. You've got, what, 3 or 4 pages of that. Basically says you couldn't or shouldn't be a fiscal agent. You could be a fiscal sponsor, but that should go to town meeting if you're gonna do that. I reported that to as well as the other issues about, you know, for further requests and who's gonna do it and who's gonna take charge. I did alert the person that came in and asked about the contents of the memo, and he had another commitment for tonight anyhow, couldn't make it, so.
Okay.
I don't know what you wanna do.
Thoughts from the board, or does the board wish to just make a motion and?
The only thing that I've got is, in lieu of the information supplied by our attorney and others, do we feel if we make a motion not to do this that the party that requested this is gonna wanna have a conversation with us?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, I'm good.
I move that based on the advice of the town attorney, that the board decline the opportunity to have the town serve as the fiscal agent for the proposed state park project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And next, we have agenda item number 10. We have Arlene Jerwitz-Layton here to present to the board.
My name is Arlene Jerwitz-Layton. I'm a new committee member of the broadband committee, and I started to be wondering about remote meetings about 2 months ago and started to research it. And what I found using your meeting packets and also your YouTubes was that you actually in mid-September had discussed the policy and that it was tabled. And I just want to say that I really would like that you reconsider the remote policy, because I think it's going to be important in the future. I remember in the YouTube from mid-September that your town attorney, your town administrator mentioned, we don't know where this COVID is going. And I believe that from what I'm seeing, we may be in another emergency situation. I believe that in your packet you also have several letters from other committee members who are wanting us to have some sort of remote policy. And the other thing I've done is I started to research this. I also had some correspondence with the senior policy advisor for the Island Institute. And he's been involved in trying to get remote meetings for the Island Institutes in the islands for about 5 years. And he was at all the hearings for LD 32 that eventually became NRSA 403-B. So he has kind of an intimate understanding of the fact that this is it. The policy that your town administrator gave you in September is not going to be revised by the legislature. They're not going to take it up again. So I would really, really suggest that you take this policy seriously and that you allow remote and hybrid meetings to happen. And I think for the good of yourselves as board members, and for the good of the members of our town committees, please enact this policy as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions for Arlene? Okay, thank you very much.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure, come on up and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Cheryl Nevius, and I am chair of the Recreation Commission. And we do have a member who actually couldn't be at our meeting tonight because she does not feel able to be in the same room with a bunch of people. She is immune compromised. And I think that this is something that our members are volunteers, and we need to encourage people to be part of a committee and not to discourage them. So I hope that you will reconsider and work something out, make an exception, word it so that we can at least have some members participate remotely. I had my laptop with me tonight just so that I know she couldn't vote, but I had it there so she could come, and she did not make it. I guess she couldn't connect or something, but it's just like having the person there if you have a laptop and they can see everyone else. So I just feel like it would be as equitable as it is to be in person. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yep, come on up.
Rosie Gary, 152 Youngtown Road. I would be really concerned with the ramifications that what type of burdens would this put on the administration here, like the town administrator and the ladies in the office for extra packets and stuff, because being a public meeting, then therefore this stuff needs to be put in some forms of packets. Whenever you held your Lakes and Ponds Committee or something, it needs to be publicly, so the public can respond and can be in that. So I'd like to hear some pros and cons to this before you voted, if it's all possible. If you could take that in consideration, and like I said, I'd like to hear the pros and cons to this whole situation.
Yeah.
Well, I'll respond directly. I think that, and this is my personal opinion, that our responsibility lies towards making it as accessible to our fellow townspeople as possible, not necessarily the burden of it, that it will be on the employees and public servants. So that's how I feel about it. I think that it's much more of a loss to prohibit people from taking part in the process. And while I respect that David and that the employees in the office have a great deal to do, that is their job, and I find that town government really needs to engage its citizens and the people that we represent as much as possible. So that's where my primary concern is at. And there's also, another side of this where these committees have various responsibilities, and part of that can be delegating the organization of those packets and being presented to be uploaded onto the website. So that's where my priorities lie, is with the citizens of our town and making them have the ability to participate in the procedure as much as possible. Because we know that there's a dearth of volunteers on the committees, and there's a lot of town business that needs to be taken care of, and I find that we can't lose people. And so what we really need to do is figure out a way to create a system that is best for the tax-paying citizens of Lincolnville to take part in the local town government. I don't know if that helps to answer some of your question on just how I personally feel about it.
I'm also, I want participation. I think that we need to keep committee members involved as much as possible. But I'm also taking into consideration that I'm assuming that a lot of these are Zoom meetings. Is that sort of what we're talking?
No, we can't.
It's not a
No.
free-for-all.
So is that what the board is perceiving, is a Zoom meeting of type? or what?
Well, right now, there's not we're not talking about a structure or
Yeah.
anything right now. Arlene requested to get on the agenda and present to
Sure.
the board, so there's no specifics contained right now.
Okay.
But presumably,
Because I do have questions for that too, if it comes to that point, I have some questions for that.
Sure.
so.
Sure. Mike, you had
Yeah, I don't,
Question or
yeah,
comment?
yeah, please, yeah, I don't wanna get into the specifics or speculation about what it might be, anything
Sure.
like that. But I don't know, and maybe I'm reading this all wrong, but it seems to me this board's hands are pretty much tied by the language in 403B. And, I mean, I'm, the way I read it, it's, you basically have to have an illness or a physical condition preventing you from getting and attending to the meeting. And, unfortunately, you know, I just don't see, you know, apprehension, or perceived risk as equaling a physical condition. And, you know, unless you've got, basically, the language seems to say, unless you present a doctor's orders saying that you have a physical condition or an illness, I don't see any other way around 403B. I could be, but like I said, that's the way I'm reading it. I could be totally wrong.
So, to specifically answer that, I would find that that is dangerous ground to be treading.
Oh,
Let me explain why
Sure,
I
go
think
ahead.
that. So, first of all, in this country, there are privacy laws about people's medical history and their medical conditions. And I find that when you start approaching a line of requiring citizens to be giving personal, private medical information in order to take part, again, in public government proceedings, that is a dangerous precedent to set. So I don't read the legislation like that at all, and I would find it to be a disturbing precedent to set that we would require volunteers to submit their personal and private medical information to us. That's just, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm not suggesting we do anything of the kind.
Yeah,
Josh,
my-
you had a comment.
I believe you're mistaken.
I don't mind being mistaken at all.
Just reading the law, you know, number 2 requirements, subsection, or say B2,
Yeah, yeah.
so illness, other physical condition, or temporary absence from the jurisdiction of the body.
Mhm.
So temporary absence, so if
Yeah.
someone has to visit a sick aunt, or they're on vacation.
I just did it a few weeks ago.
Right, so to me, that, or temporary absence
Hmm?
would encompass more than an illness or a physical condition. And then number 3 doesn't apply to us because it's not statewide membership. I guess number 4 doesn't apply either. But so, to me, it's not just illness or a physical condition. And also number 1, in the existence of an emergency or urgent issue. One could argue we're in an emergency, there's new variants out. So I think it's a little more encompassing than just that.
I'm sorry, yeah, it may be, I'm not an attorney. I just know that these are non-exclusive. They're characterized as non-exclusive, so they can obviously include more conditions. But the conditions that are mentioned don't indicate worrying about getting a disease. That's,
Well, and that would be, I mean, as with anything, with any of our committees, I mean, we have to deal with weather, snow, all personal life circumstances. We're humans with complex dynamics at play. Maybe we're just having a really bad day and don't want to participate in public. You know, there's any number of self-excluding circumstances that an individual may not choose to participate in a committee or go to a committee, and that's none of our business, Jordan, as you said, nor would we ever want to get into the business of asking. It's just, you have chosen for a reason that you cannot attend, and hopefully you give everyone adequate notice. And I think about the conversations that this board has had to this date, and looking at the complexity, because this is no small thing to adopt and enact and then pass along to committees and ad hoc committees. And it seems as though while we're trying to figure out what this thing is, I feel like we're all trying to figure out how we're going to live with the world as it is right now. And I feel like I have trust in our committees and our staff and our board to, like, I trust in our committees and our committees' memberships that they're getting the work done that they need to get done. And I'm not saying that any one committee is less important than another committee, but there are certain committees, I would imagine, that could have if they're feeling circumstantially, whatever the reasons are, COVID or otherwise, that there could be a conversation within the committee about how to simplify their workload or have limited amounts of meetings until circumstances change or a state of emergency is enacted or any number of other circumstances. But I see this as a conversation incumbent on the individual to make a choice that they need to make rather than wholesale policy changes across the board of our government. So that's my thought.
Well, and this isn't actually, it's not an argument or a counter to anything, but I think that, we've had this system in place up until the pandemic came around, and there's a reason why the legislation was passed. So if there wasn't an issue, then we would just be continuing with business as normal. So I do believe that there was a clear intention behind passing this legislation, because there is a need to provide this option. If there wasn't a need to provide this option, why would the legislation have been drafted and then passed? I think that's an important thing to think about, because, as we all know, there has been a system in place for a very long time, and the local government has operated that way, and there's a reason why there has been an additional option offered. And I think that's important to think about.
Sorry, no. Josh, you had a point to make.
Yeah, so I think we should move forward with the draft we have in our packet and go to a public hearing. And I feel that way because I want to empower the boards and committees to make these decisions for themselves. So we would, just so everyone understands, as far as I know, the procedure of how this works in terms of what the legislation allows. If this were to go forward, the Board of Selectmen would draft a policy, which we have a draft here in our packet. Then we would vote for that. That would go to a public hearing, I think 7 days notice, and then have a public hearing, and then vote on it then, and then it would be approved. And then once the Board of Selectmen approved a remote policy, then other boards and committees under the Board of Selectmen could draft their own policy, which I think can't be any looser than what the Board of Selectmen had passed, but could be more stringent, and then they would have to have their own public hearing. And to your point, I like the idea that we are in this uncertain time. We have new variants, numbers are going up. To give committees that flexibility to pass a policy and make those decisions for themselves within their membership, if it's the right thing to do for them to have a remote meeting, depending on what's going on for that meeting. In terms of how realistically this would be implemented, the way I see it is we have contingency funds, we have ARPA funds. This is something that's related to COVID, and there's something called an owl cam. It's $1,000. It sits on a stand and it moves around automatically depending on who's talking. It's a camera with microphones, and that's one option the Board of Selectmen could use if we were implementing a hybrid policy. In terms of committees running their own remote meetings, I would never want David to have to organize those ever again. To me, a way that could work is if the chairs of the committees were trained on how to use Zoom, how to run a meeting, and use the town account, basically, once they've demonstrated they know how to run a meeting using that software. And so that way they could simply just start it, run the meeting, and stop it on their own. So I think, we have in our packet a number of individuals, some chairs of committees we have in this town saying, help, we need this now. And so at the very least, we can vote on this draft policy, which I think looks good, and have a public hearing and see how that goes. And then if we hear from the public, we don't want this, we think this is dangerous, we don't think the time is right for it, we don't want you spending our money on this, then we can vote it down. But I think we should at least go to that stage because, this pandemic is still going.
Yeah, Karen.
Maybe I'm totally off base here, but I'm reading this 403B, remote participation in public proceedings, which was included in our packet, which I think everybody has. This is in reference to board or public proceedings. It's not in reference to committees.
Well, committee meeting
It's a
is a
public
public
proceeding.
proceeding.
But it does not say committee. It
Committee
says
meeting
it's-
is a public proceeding.
Okay, but
Just a
it
different-
references,
It's just a different
board.
section of that Title I.
we all have this.
Well, and we've discussed this in previous meetings where it was specifically mentioned that the board had to accept something in order to even allow for the other committees to choose this for themselves. So it's definitely involves committees that are public meetings.
So like,
And this isn't forcing anybody to do anything. What we're doing is stepping out of the way and letting the public decide, which I feel like is the best option. It wouldn't be a unilateral decision. Nobody would be forced to do anything. If there were objections, they would be able to participate in the public process, and then whatever the result of that would be the result. But I would be remiss if we didn't at least put this before the public and allow the townspeople to decide what they feel comfortable with as far as participating in their own local government.
Well, and to that point, I completely agree, which is why I stand by the board's previous conversation of allowing the thoughtful process of figuring out what the true implications, both in terms of staffing, cost, logistics, etc., and including it with the budget conversations that we are going to imminently be having, and in true transparent form, allow the budget committee and all of the public hearings that we will be having about this conversation happen in due course rather than trying to come up with a really fast and quick solution.
well, there's nobody that wants all of our committees full and participation any more than I do. But we have to do it right, and sometimes how we get there is very important. And I stand by that. Stand by that on the other
I agree
committees
about the
tonight.
process. I would just counter that with, 3 months have gone by, and we've done nothing, and what we're proposing is to do nothing for another few months. And I don't understand how it's not going through the proper process or due diligence by putting this before the public. So I just, this comes up a lot when we are proposing to do work on things, and more often than not what happens is that items and actions are tabled for months and months and months. At the same time, we don't work on a solution, we don't work through the process, and there's nothing done. So I do not like that process of doing nothing, and what is proposed is to wait for the budgeting process, which is another few months. So then how long will it be since we talked in September when the legislation was passed? So are we talking waiting 6 months to start earnest discussion and work on something while we're in the midst of an active pandemic that's so severe that our legislators decided that they needed to pass emergency legislation to address it? So I'm all for working towards a solution, but that's not what's being proposed. Waiting And doing nothing is not working towards a solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, Josh?
We'd have to wait 6 months, right? The budget is passed in June, and we're going into the winter time, and that's a really long time to wait. And we have these letters from people in our committees saying, help us. I don't think this is a half-baked idea. You know, we did this. We had remote meetings. So in terms of the fundamentals of how to run Zoom meetings, we've all experienced it, and we know how to do it, at least in that fully remote setting. And so, you know, the question is, how do we do it in a hybrid setting? I really don't think it has to be that much more complicated than a laptop and an Alcam. And that can evolve as we have more hybrid meetings. I don't think it needs to be you know, a very expensive, fancy system. I just don't see the harm in implementing it, in at least going to a public hearing and going from there. I don't see the cons to that.
Question for the board. We have had a couple hands up in the audience. Do we want to hear more public comment?
Sure.
Arlene, you had your hand up first.
I know that some people don't like Zoom meetings, and I understand even in the legislature, when they were debating this, you know, face-to-face meetings is the default. That's what they ask for. However, in certain circumstances, if somebody is away and you need a quorum for your meeting, that person could come in remotely in a hybrid situation. The other thing that as I mentioned in your note, in the letter I wrote, we don't know where this pandemic is going. This next virus, frankly, if you look at the UK, they're starting to have a limited lockdown. They're asking people to work from home. So what is coming in January, February is unknown. I would like to see something enacted so that at least the town government and its committees can continue. I'm not asking that remote meetings be always happening, but in certain instances they should. And this is the only policy. If you don't pass this and something happens, there's not going to be emergency legislation. What you're seeing in front of you is the permanent legislation. And hopefully, somewhere down the future, the pandemic ends and we go back to face, which everybody would prefer. And I'm just saying that it was written in mid-June when there were 12 cases of COVID, and now the numbers are creeping up, and we don't know what the future holds. So I would like us to try to do this and do it in a way that helps yourselves and also other people, your committee members. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Rosie?
Rosie Gay. Again, I just have a concern that in the past, when I have seen policies in place, to change that policy again almost never happens. It's almost, there should be some sort of a maybe temporary solution to this, but to set a firm, thus saith the law, policy on something like this is, I think you need to be cautious on this. The other thing is, we need to be thinking, yes, the committees, but we need to be thinking about the entire body of Lincolnville. And not everyone, your suggestion, Josh, does that mean that you will be here to be controlling that? Or will somebody be in the town office to come so that somebody that has no capabilities, that would like to be involved or have a question, but cannot run a remote system, can they come to the town office and sit in front of a camera that somebody has come down and provided for them? These are some questions that I have, because there are a lot of people that are not anywhere near computer savvy, and that is believe it or not, there's a large number of Lincolnville residents, and the whole idea is we want our community involvement. We want to, I understand, and let me tell you, I am 100% behind being protected and doing the things. If it's out of control, maybe there's something you do say, can you do something that say to like the Lakes and Ponds Committee? Can you say, Chairman, it's up to you, because of the conditions right now, you make the decision for this committee. But the cemetery committee, which I'm chairman of, we the meeting and we have less members and stuff, we may make the decision that month to hold a regular meeting, which is open to the public.
Yeah, Josh.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it's addressed in the packet, in the sense that if you have a hybrid meeting where, well, first of all, you can't have a fully remote meeting because you feel like it. It has to be because of a specific emergency. But if you have a hybrid meeting, it has to be open to the public. So if people want to participate with that, they just come into the town office and they're part of it. And every chair can make that decision for themselves in terms of if it's, well, first of all, as I said, there's that process, but the chair can then decide if it's a hybrid meeting or an in-person meeting. And so people, it simply extends the transparency and it extends the access of the meetings, because if it's fully remote, people can log on, and that would only be in very specific cases of emergencies, and otherwise it's hybrid where it has to be open to the public here in the town office.
Sure, yeah, any new points? New points, please.
Douglas Grant, I'm also on the Parks and Rec Commission.
And make sure to speak into the microphone
Sorry.
so the folks
I
are.
have a tendency not to.
Yep.
So, sorry. So, the whole reason we always had in-person meetings that were part of the law was for access. And we're changing. Technology is changing. Dottie and I were having a discussion about how we don't have cable anymore. And the townspeople can't watch your meeting live anymore because we don't have cable anymore. And having a hybrid meeting does allow people to log on and watch. So you're actually encouraging more people to participate in our town meetings and all our public meetings by having that hybrid technology and hybrid meeting. It also allows for our committee sometimes to actually have a quorum, because without Leslie, if one of us is not here, we don't have a quorum. Even though we try to meet every month, if we lose without Leslie, if we lose one of us, we don't have a quorum. So I think it also encourages the public to have more public meetings by having that ability to have a hybrid meeting.
And we are on YouTube, so people can watch.
Well, they can watch later.
Yeah.
It's actually live right now. Yeah.
Oh, it is live right
It is
now?
live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But thank you for bringing that up. Jordan.
And I guess I just wanted to clear up what may seem as confusion. This is not a and/or decision. These meetings, again, hybrid means this is going on, but there's also an apparatus that allows members who are not there to be part of it. So it actually addresses all of your concerns quite adequately. So it gives you twice the amount of people who can participate. If people wish to come in because they're not technologically savvy, they absolutely can, because there's a live meeting going on in the town office. Simultaneously, there is a meeting going on that's being broadcasted, and any members that are not present physically are on a screen and can be heard. So it's the best of both worlds. It's not, you have to either meet at home and there's nothing going on here, or only meet here and nothing going on home. This is actually a combination of both to make it so that the maximum number of people can participate, which I think is a fantastic option.
Anything else on this?
Well, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we have a public hearing on the Town of Lincolnville's remote hybrid and meeting policy. The draft date is September 13th, 2021.
Second.
moved and seconded. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. Anything else on that? All right, moving along. We have an update on our broadband. Who would like to go first?
Getting to that point.
Okay. No, not rushing you.
I guess I'll start just in the order of the packet. So the Island Institute is in fact interested, and they have just a few questions for us. So thought it would be best for the five of us to talk about those questions and see if we want to move forward with that.
Great.
So looking at their questions, let's just go question by question. The first one was number one, the grant requires a 1-to-1 match. Is this something the town is willing to support at a total of $15,000 from town, $15,000 grant? If we go ahead with Axiom, it's $12,500 without the equity aspect of it. And so I would imagine if the town put up half of that cost, so $6,500, and asked the Island Institute to pay the other half, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Do you have a proposal on where the $1,500 would come from to make up the balance of what the voters have already set aside?
Yes, the ARPA, the $20,000 ARPA funds from the county.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's number one. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay, so then number two, I guess that's a moot point. And then number three, can you outline the planning work? And my understanding of the way the RFP is structured, it would be the early planning, the surveying, community engagement, and assessment.
Is that something that you can basically give them the broadband committee charge as a explanation for that question?
I guess that or
the RFP?
Or just RFP, yeah. And they can, I mean, that gives them all the information that they need to determine that.
Okay.
I think they mostly just want to see that we actually have the work plan.
Would it be out of bounds to take some language from Axiom's proposal, or response to the RFP for projected planning that the Institute might want to see? Would we be purloining stuff from Axiom if we were to use some of that language as well?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, we could just send them both.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's all public record, so.
Yeah, well, the reason I say that is because Axiom states their case very clearly, and,
Well, and I seem to remember that the representative from Axiom was very egalitarian with their,
Oh, yeah. Whether we decided to go with them or not.
yeah, it's like you
more than
take
happy
it,
to help.
use
Yep.
it, run with
Yeah,
it.
and these aren't, it wasn't done in an executive session, this isn't it's
Okay.
all
fair
on the
game.
table and very public
Yeah.
and usable, so.
Okay, fair game.
Which makes
Yep.
it easy.
Is that all they need?
Yeah, and
That's it?
And there's a very good chance of us, that I don't wanna knock it, but it's very simple. I mean, they wanna give this money out, they're very helpful, it's a fantastic organization, and, they followed up with us because they wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage, so I think it would really
Thankfully,
need to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Which is great. But I'm just I'm a little shocked that this wasn't in the original application, you know, stuff like this. What do you want it for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, but, you know, they're pretty straightforward questions.
So why would I know, but.
Yeah, well, this is the easiest one to apply for. The other ones are more in depth because there's also more involved, but this is really just a very straightforward. And the Island Institute's been around and giving out grant money for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
So
So,
yeah, it's-
question procedurally with the ARPA funds for our town administrator, what step, like, I'm hesitant for us to all sit here and go, yeah, let's do that, if we're not following the process for the ARPA funds,
Okay.
because we can't technically say yes to number one unless we've crossed our Ts with the other stuff.
If the board is proposing to use the 20,000, or a portion of the $20,000 that Waldo County granted the town, for this purpose, I think you clearly have the authority and ability to do that. You might even consider utilizing, the match entirely from Waldo County's money, so that the $5,000 you appropriated for committee money then gives you some more opportunities should something else arise in the later that doesn't qualify for ARPA. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, it does.
And we don't have to have a public hearing or anything
Not
like that
on the county,
not for the county.
nope.
Okay.
broadband was just, and there has been many unclear messages, I think David can confirm, and a lot of the messaging coming from the top down. However, especially with the $20,000 disbursement, it was made very, very clear that the intention for usage broadband was really up there. And because it was specifically to address different towns coming to the county of Waldo seeking funds for specifically broadband projects. So whether we use 6% of that money for the $1,250, or as David suggests, we hold the budgeted money as a buffer and we use the, a little bit more than that, 15% or so, or 20% towards that, and we have a chance of saving the town $7,500 or $6,500. I think that would be advantageous.
Okay, great, thank you, David.
I mean, it doesn't, just to clarify, it doesn't preclude you from, if you wanted to hold a public hearing or anything else on the expenditure of the county money, but I think it's available to you should you, as a group, decide to do that.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
And I know you're telling us go ahead, but I got to question you to make sure, because you're basing that recommendation on the Waldo County's language that we would like you to use it for broadband.
No, I'm not.
Okay, then what are you basing it on?
Yeah, Waldo County initially came out with that saying,
Right,
we'd
right.
like this to be used for broadband. Then they backtracked
Right, right.
on that in the, I can't remember what they called it, but that you had me sign and send back to them, saying we would use it in accordance with their agreement on ARPA funds.
Okay,
Feasibility for broadband is clearly an ARPA eligible
of course.
expenditure. We'll have to cross the Ts and dot the Is and submit, the follow-up paperwork back through the county so they can tell whoever in the feds that that's how it was used, but yeah,
Sorry.
you've appropriated monies for this, or townspeople have appropriated monies for this. The law allows you to accept gifts towards that, so you've got multiple ways of saying yes if that's what you choose to do.
Okay.
So I have a question, Josh or Jordan. Can we agree to all of these in principle now, and then on our next agenda have this, as an agenda item so that people can plan to come and speak to it? I'm just procedurally, like, what are they looking for? Like, is this a thing that we had to do yesterday, or?
So, I'll tell you what I know. I'm not gonna assume I know more than what I know. And that is that Ken Jadro had sent this to Stephen in October, and then he sort of stumbled upon it in his inbox much later, November 22nd, sent it to us, and then and told her, oh my God, I see it now, and then I gave it to David. So it's a rolling grant, so I'm assuming it's whenever we get it to them.
Okay.
So that's all I know.
Yeah, I would suspect that the Island Institute, if you can satisfy their a couple of questions, that they're actually going to have some sort of, I don't know how voluminous it would be, it might even just be a one-page grant offer letter that says, we'll give you this if you're gonna do that,
And we'd have to. accept
sign
that.
here.
And at that point, we could definitively say we wanna take X number of dollars from the ARPA funds, or like just what percentage, whether we're gonna use. Just
Well,
the-
we
those
know
dollars.
we've got it available
Yeah.
to us, it's just that we need,
Yeah, it's just the,
And we've agreed and voted to go ahead with the RFP, so, I
It's
mean,
just
and
splitting
we,
hairs where the
yeah,
money
so I
comes
mean,
from.
I feel like it would be best to move ahead with that, and then we can put it on the agenda when we hear back from them to get public input,
yeah,
and then we could make the final decision on what allotment of funds, what percentages and where we'd like to use, but I do think that it would be beneficial just to submit what we can to the Island Institute.
oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
then, yeah.
just, yes.
And then,
All
like
that-
you said,
all that.
once we get something back,
Sounds
get it
good.
right
Yeah.
on the agenda, and
Yes, I think we're all saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
I think we're still.
Okay, great, okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, so yeah, so that's it on Island Institute, and so from that, I'm assuming that the board, we're just gonna wait on the Axiom contract until the next meeting, because then we'll know where the fundings come from.
Yeah, I think
Right.
so,
Okay,
yeah.
that sounds good. Okay, so now I'm gonna pivot. We had a broadband committee meeting Thursday, when was it?
it was one of those tea days.
I just wanna know for sure.
Day, yes, it ended in day.
Tuesday.
Present
And we
us
met with
some
Red
letters.
Zones.
Oh,
And it was recorded. They gave us a PDF, which I'm going to send to David, so we all have it. And they talked about their technology. So I'm not sure if all of you know about Red Zone's tech. So
none.
okay, here we go. So
Star Trek.
was it September, that they announced the groundbreaking new technology that is completely changing fixed wireless internet. And so that's internet at your home. So Red Zone is a company based in Rockland. I think they've been around since 2011, 2006. They are in every county in Maine, and up until now, the fastest service they offered was 25 down, 3 up. I know a number of people in Lincolnville that had it, and it wasn't great for them because it's line of sight, and so it just was spotty service for them. So this new technology apparently is completely different, and they had a number of test sites in Rockland. They had one tower beaming down, and they were getting 600 down, 100 up. And so this
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
yeah, it's kind of shocking. And so the basic pitch, which is a pitch they're making to towns across Maine right now, is if you give us, most or all of your ARPA funds, we will come in, which will cover 30% of our costs. We'll come in and pay the rest, and we will light up your town in a matter of months, and everyone in your town can potentially have access to this, and it would be, their prices were like $60 a month for, I think, 100 down, 20 up, or $79 a month for 100, I think, something like that. And they said specifically in Lincolnville, they would put this equipment on 4 existing towers. It would cover like 98% of the town, and then they would put a handful of repeaters up, and it would be 100% covered. And so, many towns in Maine, including the Waldo County Broadband Coalition, which is 5 towns, is seriously considering this right now. And the longer we wait, the more evidence we'll have from other towns that that this
How it
isn't,
works, yeah.
that this is real. But it's a really exciting possibility that we should be considering, absolutely.
Because sorry.
I'm sorry. So, red zone history hasn't been that great
No.
up until now, and then all of a sudden they've announced they're gonna change the world. Do we have anybody to fall back on that can actually
Yeah.
explain to us about
So-
experience with this new technology?
So this is very new technology that was to be, just on the table. It's not red zone developed. They have partnered with a company named Tirana, who, and I looked up all of their intellectual property and the patents that they filed and received over the past 4 to 5 years. This is very new technology, very, very new. We're talking about 4 or 5 years old. So Tirana is the developing company, and they're working with red zone. So that's why it is different. And this is, I can't substantiate their claims. In a hypothetical world, this sounds like a fantastic stopgap solution, but there is real world implementation that needs to happen. So we were given a pitch, and we all know what a pitch is like. But the interesting part of the pitch was, and I'm not advocating for one way or another, I just feel like every option we need to consider seriously, was that it wasn't a one-sided contractual agreement. That there can be clauses in the contract where there are requirements for them to reach 100% of Lincolnville, guarantees of service. So if we decided at some point going forward that we were comfortable with moving forward with a project like this, we would be able to sit down at the table with Red Zone and dictate the terms in which we felt comfortable spending town or whatever appropriated funds to do it. So it wouldn't be, and again, not advocating for it, it wouldn't be like a roll of the dice. We would say, if you can fulfill these promises that you say, then we'll go with it. But we would also be able to negotiate, if you're unable to, then we need a refund. Or we can negotiate a way through their service for the town to possibly recoup the funds that have gone into it if it is even successful. So, and we haven't heard that from any other types of providers. So it's on top of the technology, the approach as far as a partnership with the town is a much different type of approach than we've been used to. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Interesting.
Kern, to your point, if you watch that recorded meeting during that pitch, the guy mentions more than a few other cities that have tested it as well. It's not just Rockland, Maine.
And Reds is not the only company using this technology.
Right, yeah, so it's
other
out
places.
there, and other large metropolises and rural areas. So you might get some names and places from there, yeah.
Cool. But we've got a hard geography, and we've got a lot of mountains and a lot of hardwood and a lot of water and a lot of long driveways. So, again, not besmirching anyone, but I'm a skeptic first, just until things are proven to me. And so, like we had discussed, if this was a purely hypothetical situation, it's of course it sounds fantastic, right? But we need to know that it would be it would be applicable to our town, wouldn't be a waste of money, and then if we decide to go forward, to be able to build those protections into any hypothetical contract going forward, for me that would be a really important thing, a performance-based contract. And again, not advocating for or against it, but
They indicated they were open to that.
he
Yeah,
brought that up.
very,
Yes.
very open.
Yeah.
I mean, the CEO, Jim McKenna, was
Yeah.
right here chatting with us. Now, I wouldn't advocate we even consider this for a second until we see another main town lit with this and hearing from the residents that they're happy with it. And that could happen apparently in a matter of months. So waiting and seeing for this really is smart, and we could see what happens pretty quickly.
Josh, have you considered, you mentioned Southwest Waldo, and I know that they are looking at Red Zone, working with them as well. Have you considered and working with Southwest Waldo, approaching them again to see if they, because would like to work with Lincolnville, because it may be the case that we and Southwest Waldo end up doing Red Zone at the exact same time and could save a lot of money as a result.
We haven't talked about that as a committee.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask, okay. If that's not-
There was no economics of scale discussed during this pitch either. So I don't think that I mean, perhaps, and it's always worth asking,
Yeah.
but it didn't seem like that it was dependent on scale, because they, as Josh had mentioned, it's not that they would even be erecting towers in the town, they would be installing this technology on pre-existing sites. So teaming up with another town, again, I don't know, I mean, we can ask and find out, but this was, the pitch was enticing enough theoretically on our own where we wouldn't even have to do that. But we can, of course.
Worth considering. for
Yeah,
sure.
because they're looking at the exact same thing we are at the exact same time, and building could happen at the exact same time, and both of us could end up saving a lot of money. That's why I asked.
So that was exciting. I'm glad our broadband committee could have that conversation. Should be on YouTube, so I think it was,
It is.
what, 2.5-hour conversation?
It's a long conversation.
Did you watch it?
Yep.
Well, and he
Okay.
answered,
How was
it's
he
not
funny?
Well, it always is in this room, but that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you did a good job with getting the mics and all.
Yeah,
that.
we were trying
Yeah,
to push
no,
them
yeah.
together with the
But
mics.
it's- This room is not rigged for hearing a pin drop, you know?
Yeah, it's, for sure.
Yeah.
Jordan, you were saying?
well, it was lengthy, but it also, while there was a sales pitch going on, there were a lot of real questions asked, pressing questions that were answered. So it is a good conversation to listen to, and it wasn't just like a pandering type of meeting. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for updating us on that.
You're welcome. I'm trying to think if is there anything else we're missing?
no, I think that was it. We'd be remiss if we presented the board with a one-sided, view of things and only was pushing for fiber. We just want you guys to know that every avenue, regardless of even how
Yeah.
realistic it is, we're trying to find any kind of solution to what's going on. I
Yeah.
want you guys to be apprised of that as well.
Yeah, Josh, I do have one question for you. And I wasn't at the last two meetings, so when you discussed the Axiom thing, so you may have already discussed it. But anyway, with red zone,
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah.
And the Axiom's proposal mentions that they will indeed be agnostic to other technologies.
Yeah.
Are you confident that Mark and Axiom will be agnostic to fixed wireless as opposed to 100% fiber only, because it's the gold standard?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, it's a tricky thing because fixed wireless has never been that fast.
Right.
And so for people who have been in the broadband zone for 2 decades, and now there's a cutting edge technology, they're rightly, they should be skeptical of it.
No, the skepticism is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about, will they look at that option fairly?
I think so.
Good.
And I just want to just 1 second on that. Is that, and it was made very clear by Mark, and also, this is not something that Axiom's going to take over with their own agenda. We are the boss, and we set the agenda, and and he said this, we're in the driver's seat. So if we decide that we want Axiom to pursue this venue, they're absolutely going to do that because we're paying them, and they would be our employee, and so they will not try and paddle us up a current that we don't wish to travel.
And just a personal anecdote with wireless internet, I've spent a lot of time in some pretty remote non-US island communities that exist solely on this technology because there's no way you can get amongst thousands of islands physical infrastructure, and it's what the country runs on. So it's simultaneously horrifying that you can be in a really beautiful remote place and also get really good internet through a cell repeater. But I have personally seen it work in some pretty crazy places. So of course there also weren't the trees and mountains and all of the things that we've got as reality. Yeah. So anything else on broadband? Okay. Let's move along. David, we have a update to our audit situation.
Yeah, so our auditors have been here to look at fiscal year 21, which ended June 30th of 21. And as part of that, the town of Lincolnville have received in excess of $750,000 of federal funds, which triggers what's called a single audit. It's a federal requirement if you receive more than $750,000 worth of federal funds. And the auditor said this is different, new, whatever, and would like to be compensated, or needs to be compensated for that. Says it's a $2,500 additional. It's not solely town money, well, all under the umbrella of the town, but a lot of the money has come to the school. So I had a conversation with the school superintendent, who quickly offered to just split the cost rather than trying to figure out where each and every dollar came from and went to.
She doesn't want to do it.
Proration.
70-30 split.
No, didn't really want to do 50-50, I don't think, but.
Well, thank for glad she offered.
So that's kind of where we are.
Great. Any other questions on that, or does someone want to make a motion?
I move that the board authorize the board chair to sign the newly proposed audit engagement letter with William H. Brewer, CPA, and that the board approves the additional expense of $1,250 for the single audit.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? None, all those in favor? All right, thank you very much. And moving rapidly along, David, do you want to talk to us about our budget review, town meeting, and election schedule?
Sure, obviously, we're planning for next June's town meeting now, and have been for a while. You have a draft schedule in your packet. The two dates that are critical to establish, which is when the board is going to meet with department head and committee chairs to review the budget. We proposed Tuesday and Wednesday, February 15th and 16th for those meetings. I guess I'll stop there and see if those dates are good, bad, or indifferent with everybody.
You said February 15th and 16th?
Correct. It's a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night.
Why not?
It worked great for me.
Yep.
Day after Valentine's Day.
And if you recall, that's the night when we bring in the budget committee.
Yep.
And we all sit
Is there
around.
a time? I feel silly.
Hopefully at 6.
Yeah,
Because
usually.
they'll go 2.5 hours.
Yep, hopefully.
Depending on how talkative I am and how much everybody wants to hear me talk.
Mm-hmm.
We love it.
Tuesday, Wednesday?
Sure.
And the other,
What else am I gonna do?
that's right, it's gonna be February. The other big question is, if you gaze into your crystal ball, where do you think we're gonna be next June in terms of in-person town meetings or all ballot? It could be in-person outdoors, could be all on the back. I don't know what you wanna do, but each one of those meetings have, if we go with the all referendum, we've got, it moves up our time frame and when decisions have to be made. And so kind of pushing you, nudging you to see if the board's willing to make that decision now or soon, or.
I mean, I thought we did a really good job with that open air town meeting when we
Yeah.
were,
I would be
Worked
for that
very
if we
well.
were out in the open for sure.
so, you know.
I mean, we can make a decision on the physical, if you're going to
Sure.
have an in-person meeting, we can make a decision on physical location based on
And if there's an emergency.
conditions at the time.
Okay.
But in terms of notifying our ballot printers and the programmers for the machine, if we want to do an all referendum again, we've got to start that ball rolling with them basically the first of the year, so that they can get, we can get near queue and whatever else, so.
Well, I mean, I'm inclined to roll the dice and go with the split traditional one, and especially if we have the option up until, we can choose to go outside or inside the gym, ventilated, masked, whatever. like that. If we have that option, great.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see us try to get back to some sort of normalcy, you know?
Well, and just both the value of having that in-person dialogue.
Miss it.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, I think if we can do it out in the open like we did last year, I'm all for that.
Okay, so we will cast in stone, for lack of a better word, the 15th and the 16th of February, so we can notify department heads and committee chairs that
Yeah.
that's gonna be the schedule. And then we'll proceed with planning for an open town meeting
And does someone care to make a motion?
Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah.
I move that the annual town meeting in June 2022 be conducted with ballot voting on Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, followed by the open portion of town meeting on Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 6 p.m., that the annual town meeting warrant be prepared to indicate such.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Only discussion, I just wanna make sure it is going to be outside and not in the gym.
I think that's a decision that you can make.
We have time to make that.
You have time to
Yeah,
make that.
You can make that on the
Okay.
fly, right?
We may have to put it in, actually,
Well, we'll have to
in the
notify,
warrant,
like,
but the warrant will be signed,
Okay.
6 weeks ahead or
yeah, I
whatever
think we've
versus
got
now.
adequate buffer time to make the safe call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Anything else? Oh, my pen just exploded.
Got a bunch of them over there.
Wait, no, I can screw
Don't
it
worry,
back.
there's 5 extras.
I can screw it back together again. Anything else on agenda item number 13, David?
Not that needs to be determined tonight.
Okay. We're in business. Okay, well, you've got the next one too. You wanna update us on the approval
Sure.
of sale of lots?
We have scheduled a closing for 2 of the 3 lots that the town owns on Levenseller Pond. For the sale price of $70,000. Closing's gonna be at some point tomorrow. I will say that the draft deed that you had in your packet has been changed by our attorney after comments from the buyer's attorney, but our attorney is comfortable with the draft language, and I have that and can share it with you if necessary. So, yay.
Great.
So each one of these lots was selling for 35,000 independently?
No, there's 2 lots. One's actually the shorefront lot, and one is the funky little access to it,
Triangle.
Yeah.
which
You could park
The-
a
But
car
that
on
was lumped in together. in
we
one
listed
sale.
we
Okay.
listed them together consciously because one provides access to
To
the other.
Okay.
Well, the
All
one
right.
lot is like a parking space,
Yeah.
essentially.
That's all it is,
Yeah,
pretty much.
so,
Yeah.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
would someone care to make a motion, please?
I move that the board authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the quitclaim deed without covenant or release, the transfer tax declaration, the underground storage tank notice, and any other documents necessary to sell the town property identified on tax map 22 as lots 29 and 31 to Adam and Corey Bogosian for the price of $70,000. Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much.
Good work on that one, everyone.
Good news.
And David, you're up again. We have to commit to a date to meet with the Camden Select Board on discussing dam policy.
Fancy language.
11 or the 24th.
Never get old.
To talk about the dam policy.
Yeah, so Camden Town Manager reached out after we said that we prefer not to meet in the month of December on it. I gave them a couple options for January, which didn't work for them, so they gave us a couple options back. And we didn't get to consensus amongst the 5 board via individual emails, so I'm bringing it back to you tonight on your agenda to tell me what you wish to do.
Not that one person should have any influence on the rest of the board, but I will be out of state from the 8th to the 15th, and I very much would like to take part in this, so I would ask if it's
You can do the
possible for
24th,
everyone
right?
the 24th, if it's possible, not an inconvenience for anyone else. I would very much like to.
I will
be
make
part of that.
whatever date work. I'm
Okay.
so
Yeah.
committed to this meeting
The-
happening.
I'll be here on the 24th.
Okay, so it sounds like,
Just to throw a little slight wrinkle into it, the 24th is your second regular meeting in January.
yeah, so it
Do
will
you
have.
want to meet your second regular meeting on the 25th, or do you want me to say?
I
If
can
they-
do that, but I can't speak and won't speak for anyone else.
Both, I can do the 24th and the 25th, or
Yeah.
cram it all in one day, doesn't matter.
I am willing to be flexible to make
Yeah.
this meeting happen, I
Thank you,
guess
Jerry.
is the
Yeah.
long and the
Yeah, yeah.
short of it.
So let's go for the 24th, and then we'll be flexible.
And do we have a time, or is that too
Uh,
premature?
it was said in the email evening,
Okay.
because that was kind of our request, so I would say the earliest would be 6.
Okay.
Okay,
Late start might be 7.
Okay.
I'll pinpoint that down and get it on everybody's schedule.
so you mentioned that they also had a request on any particular agenda items we'd like to see included, but it seems fairly straightforward. We have a defunct committee and dam policy.
Well, those are the two primary drivers would be what's the status of the committee and what's the status of the policy that created the committee. And I mean, you could talk about the operations policy if you wanted to, but that, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not sure any of us have expertise in lake levels and why that was developed long ago by the committee, which was approved by those folks. But
And I would also add, future expenditures, like
Yep.
what is Camden thinking in terms of, well, first of all, what are some major maintenance costs coming down the pike?
Yep.
Which we saw those numbers a few years ago, but it would be good to get a new snapshot.
What's real time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
real time, and then also, are they dreaming of, fish passage? What does that look like? Are they expecting us to pay a portion?
Well,
Just
since,
really ask that point blank.
yeah, since they effectively dissolved or let lapse their committee and their committee members, so they don't have their counterpart to our counterpart.
which we don't have, by the way. anymore
Yeah, we
either.
don't really have any more either, and so there's no mechanism for the two towns to work together, and so it's like, question one is there a desire and ability between the two towns to jointly manage this
Mm-hmm.
first?
Just ask.
Yeah,
And
again,
if they-
Ask it
moving
first, yeah.
forward, how can we,
Yeah.
Right. I
work
mean-
out a process in which this is not done unilaterally, and that the two towns, that we set a precedent moving forward, that we come together.
Right, and that there's
Yeah.
then a new policy developed for the mechanism of going forward and discussing, because otherwise they could be like, well, you can take a jump off, the end of, the end of the pier, we're gonna spend this money, and, but again, my feeling is that unless we have some sort of standing policy that's agreed to by both parties, they shouldn't come to us with their hands out for any kind of money from our taxpayers.
It's time for a new policy. I mean, the last one was passed, 1990 or 80s? Or?
Oh, it was 80.
Probably before that.
Yeah, let's
It's-
find a new policy.
It's so out of date, and
Yeah.
so that really is that, is there an interest in developing a new operational paradigm for management of the
Yeah.
infrastructure? But I hope that we get to the yes, so that we could then talk about what are the mechanisms that will impact future financial decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, it's a really simple question.
Yeah. And it could be they say, hey, we're dreaming big on this and we don't expect you to pay.
Yeah,
And we don't
Yeah.
wanna have our hands tied by Lincolnville,
Right.
but we'll pay for it.
right,
We don't know, so.
right, yeah.
It'll be good to just talk.
But at least we have a meeting.
Is there anything else that comes up in your mind, David, that we should touch on while we have the golden opportunity?
You've pretty much covered the gamut, I think, with what you just brainstormed amongst yourselves and what I thought about, but I'll give it a little more thought, and
Okay.
I'll get you all some background and information on the history as I know it, or the
Perfect.
notebook knows about it between now and then, to give you a chance to read up on it.
Great, super, thank you. And Kern, do you have an update for us?
I really don't have a lot, other than we're meeting month. It wasn't, we weren't able to bring everybody together, as far as I know, to get a budget from Midco Solid Waste to the towns by the end of December, but that will be coming before the end of next month.
Great.
Our next meeting, and I think we had a conversation, and I had, this had slipped my mind a while ago, we had a conversation about changing the date that is due to the towns, because of everything that's going on at Midco Solid Waste in December and with the towns, but we're not gonna talk about changing it big, but we want a little bit more room, for consideration, that's all.
Makes sense.
And
Makes
that's will be on the agenda for January.
Josh, any more updates for us?
I don't have any.
All right, Mike?
No,
All right, Jordan?
no, just happy holidays to everyone.
And same, so let's move along. We have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move the board approve the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It was such an
No, it didn't come out right, I'm sorry. I really want to get that approved, I agree with you, man. Let's do this.
Any further discussion?
What,
Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. It's been a long couple of weeks. And the two remaining agenda items before us tonight require us to enter into executive session. And as such, can I please have a motion?
I move that the
Go right ahead.
I move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056C to discuss the possible disposition of real property or premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive bargaining position of the town.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Boy, you could do the FDIC disclaimer.
Every time.
It's a fun challenge, you know?
Hey, having concluded agenda item number 18, an executive session, we have a second executive session to enter into, and can I have a motion, please?
I move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056A regarding the consideration of employment of the Public Facilities Director.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. And having concluded our executive session business, with no business left to attend to, can we have a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you all very much.